Hey everyone, welcome to Tech Breakfast. Today, I'm going to let Barry handle all the introductions because he knows everybody personally. So take it away, Barry.
Thanks, everybody. Hope everybody's logged in right now. It's Joe Salvatto from Equi Tech, and then there's Jan Glassman. Am I saying that right, Jan?
Yeah,
And close enough. And then we have Will Kahn over here is also with the company. And so I'll take it over, Joe. Speak up, get on the mic there a little bit more. But
yeah, am I good? Can you hear me all right?
yeah, fine.
There we go. Well, good. Thanks for having us, guys. It's a pleasure to be here. I'll start by saying that it's apparently some of us here are aware of the Equitech product, and but for those who have not really heard about it before, uh, in 2003, I was at an AES show in New York, and I'm walking down the aisle, and this guy pops out from behind a desk and says, "Oh, uh, you're the chief of Electric Lady?" He says, "Yeah." He's looking at my badge. He says, "You guys have SSLJs over there?" I says, "Yeah." He said, "You know the sound the console makes when all the faders are at zero, master faders all the way up, and you turn the volume control up? What do you hear?" I says, "I don't know."
Yeah.
He says, "Well, with this box, it doesn't do that." And I looked at him and I said, "Okay, well, that's transistor noise. It's switching. It's like two saturations. All those things that we can't do without." He says, "No, it's not. It's the sound of a dirty bridge rectifier trying to do its job, and the common mode rejection is what you're hearing primarily." And all of a sudden, I stopped and I says, "Holy shit, this guy's right." So that was the beginning. And after that, I went to a client and he had an Equitech. And I started to, there was no real representation on the net in those days or anything, and I started to look around, and it turns out that one of the beautiful things about this, being a maintenance engineer and putting rooms online and being the person that has to fix the hums, buzzes, clicks, and pops, this box did a lot to be able to allow us to circumvent the kind of problems that I had to deal with on a regular basis. Mostly when people would bring these huge synthesizer rigs with their own patch bays, and we'd have to be using isolation transformers to keep the noise down on all the gear. Now all of a sudden, with this box, Martin Glassman, the inventor of Equitech, says you don't have to drop the grounds any place. Tie your grounds every place because Equitech loves it. The Equitech is the center of your electrical universe in your recording studio.
Yep.
And that was the beginning. And I now all of a sudden he's got my undivided attention and also my devotion, because the rooms that I was responsible for, both as a chief and rooms that I was building and presenting to other people, now I didn't have to worry. How many times have I gone into a room, put the whole place together, hoped all my wiring guys didn't make any mistakes in the patch base, turn on the fader and just wait for the buzzes? This system, that doesn't happen anymore. So all of a sudden, my job has been made really easy, or easier, because now I have a guardian angel, and it's the Equitech. And time again, no matter whether it's a production studio, a major facility, boat, basement, wherever, this is why it made my life so much better. And by the way, it makes everything sound amazing. From the electrical standpoint and what it's brought to me. And when I tell you that I've put probably 300 that I could remember Equitechs in various places, audio post production, video post houses, venues, every place that I do it, you never hear from anybody anymore because everything is great electrically. So my wife, who is my business partner in life and every way, says, "So how long does this thing last?" And I says, "Forever." And it's like you don't understand something when you spend the kind of money that we do, and people do spend insane amounts of money, almost maniacally. When you buy a Fairchild 670 for the price of a small home, it's like, do you really think that you can't afford what an Equitech costs? And I know this is not supposed to be a sales pitch, but please understand, this is all because wherever Equitech goes, everybody loves it. And whether it's Frank Filippetti or Elliot Shiner or whoever the people that I've worked for and with, when I brought it around to them, they go, "What just happened?" And I love that comment,
So
because
Joe, people ask me about this balanced power thing, and I kind of explain it this way. It's the difference between unbalanced, like a guitar cable, and pro audio, which is balanced audio. Is that accurate to say that?
no, that just the jargon of that is true, but what it does is it takes the electrical power out of the wall, and typically on a conventional 20 amp outlet, all the energy is on the right hand side of the outlet. When we plug an Equitech into the wall, it goes through a toroidal transformer and spits it out the secondary side with 60 volts on the left side of the outlet and 60 volts on the right with respect to its ground. And the reason that is so emphatic is because every piece of electrical audio gear that we've ever listened to is DC internally by nature. And that happens through a bridge rectifier. And the bridge is where the noise comes from. So when you're feeding a bridge, which is basically a square turned on its side, I think there's a slide in there somewhere. Will there you go. There's a bridge. Take it to the bridge. So on the north and south legs,
Are you sharing a screen right now, or
yes.
Yeah, I
I
see it.
don't you don't see it yet?
I see it.
I see it.
I
It
don't.
says
Okay.
bridge rectifier. Every piece of equipment,
Oh, if everybody
bridge
sees it,
rec.
fine. I know what a bridge rec. So go ahead. I don't see it, but go ahead.
So on the north and south poles of the bridge is the where the AC comes into the bridge. And in this case, it's 60 volts on the A side and 60 volts on the B. Therefore, feeding the bridge symmetrically. That's balanced power. So the bridge ordinarily would only be fed from one side, and the neutral would have been fed from the other. This is where the difference between us and any other kind of power distribution. This transformer is unique to Equitech. Martin Glassbend designed this transformer to solve a problem, not fix the symptoms. By feeding the bridge rectifier with 60 volts on either side of the input to the rectifier, what comes out of it is symmetrical power, therefore reducing the common mode rejection factor to near zero.
Okay, we won't get into common mode the definition of common mode rejection, but just
well, yeah, I mean that's what it's doing. I mean,
yeah.
Technically that's what it does, and that's why it's quiet, and that's why it sounds better, because all of a sudden amplifiers, microphones, anything that is electrically initiated now has a different vitality. It's like racing fuel in a Ferrari. You can put 87 gas in it, but it's sure not going to drive the way it should. This is what makes the difference. All of your equipment now has a different purpose. It has huge amounts of ability to be able to create sounds that you never heard before. You listen to your files that when that's how you do it. I feel sometimes like a vacuum cleaner salesman. Like I got to go to somebody's studio, plug it in and let them listen, because that's really that's the proof is in the pudding. And people will listen to it and say stereo image is deeper. Things are more, low end is much more powerful. It just makes an amplifier. The same equipment. It's not like you're changing anything except the gas and the fuel.
Awesome. Just a reminder, everyone should have their mic muted until they want to talk. So check that. Okay. So let's talk about the products that you guys make. I have your the NAM show,
Oh
and
yeah.
the you guys make everything from take it 1.5 RQ is 1.5 kilowatt hour. That's the maximum it can do, and then it goes up to uh 5. Is that a rack mount unit? 5 RQ?
Yeah,
Yes.
it actually starts at 10. We have a 1 kVA unit.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's a new product, Barry, which we did not have at the show when you
Oh,
saw
I
it.
see it here. Yeah, I see it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's
So what
basically
would
that.
tell me something about these models?
Well,
What would be a unit for, say, what I have here, all this stuff? And I don't know, it probably pulls probably, I don't know, 1.5 kVA, 2 kVA. I estimate about 2 kVA.
that's about right. A 2RQ is probably the best solution to most recording environments that are not using huge high-powered tube amplifiers, etc. A 2 kVA is approximately 18.5 amps at 120 volts.
Yeah.
So that's a really good measuring point. Most of the places that I put them in, that's the one we've used, because most of them are production facilities, smaller Pro Tools rooms. But by the same token, I've actually pushed the envelope and been able to use that for even with more juice, because it's so overbuilt. I was at an audiophile show back in November, and this guy walked in, and we had the cover off the top of the Equi Tech, and the transformer is really formidable. It's probably 65 pounds of toroidal transformer.
This is in the 2RQ.
That's correct. Yes.
Yeah.
So it, in effect, the guy looks at it, he says, "How many kVA is that?" I says, 2 kVA. He says, "That's a big transformer for 2 kVA." And he was right, because that's one of the reasons that Martin designed it like this, is because he knew that people were going to push the crap out of it. So the transformer's overall size is well beyond what its capabilities are. Its capabilities are based in the wiring and the way it's circuit breakers are set up and everything else. It's done specifically to follow a code, and that's what it does. But electrically, what it does is so much more than that. It's got so much more cush than you'd think. So 2 kVA for you on a 2RQ would be good, Barry.
So just to tell you, it's a toroid transformer, right? It's about that big around. It's not the conventional E style transformer. It's a toroid, right?
Yes, there's a picture of that one. You can see that's one that's like a like a spare tire in a Hyundai. In that one, that's our biggest one. That transformer weighs in excess of 300 and some odd pounds. It's a wall unit, but yes, it is a completely hermetically sealed potted transformer that is wound in such a way that the laminations in the actual core are revolutionary to the design. Other transformers have used it, but not for balanced power. So the way Martin specified this transformer was to be able to maximize the ability for a transformer of this capability to just work better than any others. We have the patent on it. That's why nobody else in the industry uses it. There was a moment there where one of the other manufacturers had licensed it for maybe 18 months, and Martin had a cease and desist. So that's ancient history. However, that is one of the only ones that I've ever seen. I ran into one at a client studio about 3 or 4 months ago, and sure enough, it was balanced power, but it's not an Equi Tech.
So does it use a coil? I mean, a feedback coil in there? Is that part of it?
No, it is not. It is strictly a one-to-one transformer that is wound in such a way. So a transformer, in order to do what it does, you got to count the number of windings. So let's say 100 winds makes 120 winds is 120 volts.
Right.
Now the opposite side, which is wound in the opposite direction, in order to be able to have phase cancellation, is wound with 60 turns. So that's now 60 volts on one side. So that's the beauty of the transformer, is that it's putting out 120 volts over the two secondary wires, but in fact, it's coming in at 120 volts on one side. It's really so simple. This is something when I asked Martin about, when I met him at that show years ago, I says, "What took you so long?" This common mode rejection has been around since Marconi invented the radio. He says, "You're right. That's true." He says, "Robotics."
Yeah.
The way that this transformer is wound and the precision with which it's done and the actual potting of the way it's enclosed make it absolutely impervious. We've actually taken them out of floods. And of course, they're in the bottom of a rack in a room that got 6 inches of water in it. And the guy says, "Oh, we're going to have to get a new one." I said, "You know what? Let's just take it out in the backyard and dry it out." It's the middle of the summer. He says, "You're kidding, right?" I said, "What do we got to lose? It's drowned." So
well, it uses enameled wire. It's wrapped with that material. It's pretty tight.
Absolutely.
It doesn't have anything. It doesn't have any exposed wiring or transistors or something in there.
It does not. But of course, all the outlets do, and the circuit breakers did. The only thing that didn't work was the little LED display that didn't come back on. So we replaced that.
And also, that transformer makes a great boat anchor.
Or you can tie it to somebody if you want to drown them.
Yeah, it's a donut. If people
It's
don't
a
know, a
it's a
toroid is a
donut.
donut.
Yeah. So, you know,
So
there's all kinds of things that we've been able to do to try to entice the audiophile guys by using phenolic outlets, oxygen-free copper. Some guys are trying to make some adjustments to it and cryogenically treat the transformer. Everybody's trying to improve it. But the fact of the matter is, I love the fact that everybody's trying to make it their own. But the fact is whether it's a 1R or a 20 WQ, an Equitech is an Equitech is an Equitech. Now, people have told me, oh, I hear the difference between a 5RQ and a 3RQ. I said, God bless you. I've worked in studios my
that's
entire
pretty
life.
tweaky. That's tweaky.
Well, exactly. And that's why I'm saying we listen to audio for pleasure and to make a living. Those guys are just buying, you know, $2,000 IEC cables because they think it
Yeah,
makes the
yeah,
sound
yeah.
better.
It's
So
the
yeah,
audiophile thing.
yeah,
Hey,
yes.
Michael
And
Boddicker's here. Hey,
oh, hi,
man,
Michael.
I need your audio, bro. Um,
I'm sorry,
there you
Joe.
go. Loud and
Joe,
clear.
Yeah, good morning, Michael.
is there any kind of proximity hum? Like if you have this device that you set at the bottom of a rack, is there any kind of proximity hum induced at all by having it right next to or right above? Say, I built an extra beam in my studio to support a transformer like this, and I
Ah,
have all the sockets already put in, so I can just insert it
excellent.
before my two wall panels. And I was wondering if I have it right over where all my gear is, if that's going to induce a hum.
There is no mechanical noise out of the transformer. Even at its most demanding moments, there's no hum of any sort. They're actually in the Q models, it has a what would be considered a waist belt around it that is a Faraday shield that is encapsulating the outer portion of the transformer. So no, you can put you can put this any place you want. You can put it right next to a 67 and you wouldn't hear it.
And also no electrical hum radiating from the toroid. So
That's correct.
he's talking about mechanical noise, like if you had a loose screw holding the transformer to a chassis, and that was a point where it was not tight enough, it would vibrate mechanically. So we also
Well,
want to know electrical. Yeah.
well, inductively, it's trying to resonate because it in itself is a elegant inductor, and so it's trying to do that. But because the way the transformer is manufactured and the way it's wound, and that there's a tensile strength that is involved with the secondary coil that's different than the primary. I actually went to see the factory that that provides us with the transformer up in Canada. It was originally called Plytron, and now it's called Nortel. They were bought by a major consortium of transformer manufacturers. And these guys, you know, they've been building the same transformers for us for 30 years. It's the same transformer that Martin specified back in 1997, and they're still building it for us. And the fact is that because of that, we have a great relationship with them. They love keeping us this unit hours and hours alone. You know, they make transformers for Macintosh, they make transformers for Marshall, they make toroidal transformers for many other products in our business. However, the Equitech transformer is specifically ours to provide.
So would you call this a constant voltage transformer where so it's always a saturated reactor, the whole assembly is always saturated?
Well, it is saturated with whatever the power company is giving you. But yes, that's true. There is no voltage regulation of any kind within itself. I'm looking at, let's see, my Equitech behind me right now is putting out 124 volts. One of the things that the Equitech does, and this is Martin's also brilliance, he put an extra winding in. So if it's 120 coming out of the wall, you're going to see 123 on the secondary output side. That's just because he knew that we'd always need the juice. And he did it mechanically by putting another winding in the coil and in bringing it up to that extra 3 volts. That's just the way it is. Now, by the same token, I'm here in New York City, and during the summer, Con Edison very summarily takes a percentage of my power out, and I'm down to 114 during the summer. But with the extra 3 volts, it's still up there. Remember, all of the power supplies that are providing power for our Class A all the way down to up to Class D amplifiers. These regulators are working to keep things in stable. Now you'll talk to the audiophile guys and say, "Well, if it's not 120 volts, I got a problem with that." Well, I'm sorry, I'm the maintenance guy, and I'm not gonna try to split hairs on that one. You do what you got to do, and I will say that that's a really good reason for a, a voltage regulator in front of an Equitech. At between the mains and the Equitech itself. That's fine if you want to do that, but that's whatever. I mean, I'm just trying to be the realist here. Remember, I don't come from the audiophile world. I applaud them, but I'm the maintenance engineer. I've worked for Electric Lady. I've worked for Right Track. I've worked for BMG Music. I mean, these are my places that I've had to go to work every day and be in the shop and solve people's problems, just like yours, Michael. Because when I come into a room and a guy says, "What is that?" Well, that's a hum. Well, if you got an Equitech, that shouldn't happen. So we really do cut the fat off here by saying that an Equitech is something that makes our lives easier and more enjoyable. We've got mastering engineers that will tell you that they work faster and more competitively because they can hear better with the Equitech, and they don't want to work with
Michael over here has a question. Go ahead, Michael.
And the question was, okay, so when the power is low, that's one thing. In the valley here, I've experienced it up in the 130s when they're blocking power stations and stuff. It goes very high, and to the point where I've lost condensers in my HVACs and refrigerators. And so I'm just wondering what happens when DWP sends 134 down the pike. What happens? Will this be able to handle it okay?
The transformer really doesn't care. The transformer is going to pass it no matter what. So that's my point. Is that I'm looking, I use mine as a I look at it every day, and I watch the fluctuations, and it does go up. I've seen 127 on some days here. So yes, it does. It's up to the power supplies within the equipment, and I believe you when you say that it takes out a capacitor in an HVAC system. Sure, because those are AC capacitors that are just blowing voltage everywhere, and if they go out of tolerance, they're going to explode. But in our gear, in the world that we work in, not so much, because the power supplies are shunted, and they will spill off voltage, extraneous voltage to the ground in a normal power supply. I'm not here to explain power supply theory, but it does that. So when we see it in the audio area, it's not usually. I mean, I've never heard that. You were the first person to tell me that.
I had them out here with meters going, "Yep, you're right," because all my Furmans were just lighting up like crazy. And because I've been doing this a while, I have older equipment. Not everything is with modern power supplies where, it's meant to go all the way up to 240, go between 50 and 60 hertz and all the way up to 240 volts like worldwide power. I did lose things. I did lose Furmans with, where the LEDs stuck all the way on and they never would come back down. And I just had to buy new ones and stuff. So
yeah, well, there's something called a thyristor. And a thyristor it goes between the ground, the technical earth in the box, and the neutral. And that's kind of the shunt. And when that happens, it kind of pops that thing. And once that pops, the LEDs just blow out and they don't work anymore. So you're right. I mean, that's exactly what happens. I've seen it happen. Now,
the power company, the power company is only responsible for keeping the frequency 60 hertz constant because of mechanical clocks, but that's all they want to deal with.
That's true.
They only specify a range of voltages, and like Michael is saying, it can go way up. I'm lucky because my transformer is on the property line right up there, the pole transformer, and so I get 122 all day long, all day.
So Joe, this will work even if it goes up to 130, 130. I've had as high as 134. Yeah, and my transformer, brand new transformer, meant to handle. I have a 600. Uh, I want to make
Amps.
sure I said this correctly.
600
600
amps.
amp
Yep, 600 amps.
system. So I have three 200-watt splits off to various parts of the house. And I'm
200 amps,
less
mind
than
you.
40 feet from the transformer, brand new transformer. When that goes up high, I'm still, this is not going to
Explode.
blow up.
No, it's not.
Or not blow up, but you know
Yeah,
what I
no,
mean.
well,
It's
no,
not, the
it will.
circuitry's not gonna,
There is no. See, that's the thing. The circuitry is exactly that. It's a winding around a big magnet. So literally, it's just gonna. There are no limits to it, and actually, 134 volts is a little concerning, but it's not going to bother the Equitech.
okay, fantastic.
That's a
Thank you
very
so much.
Well, he's
and
he's
thank
looking.
you
I
because
think
that was a very insightful question. I love learning new things, and that's definitely one of the. I never realized that you guys get higher voltage. And now, once again, for those people that care, they do make voltage regulators that will feed into a Equitech, and that's very good. And those devices are not that expensive, and will actually keep. It'll do that. It will keep you at a constant 120 volts. So yes, that is all good news. By the way, we were just at Blackbird Studios in Nashville a couple of weeks ago, and talk about having the transformers close. They have, I think, a dozen transformers coming into their campus. They have one of the largest Equitech farms in the world. They have, I think, a half dozen of our 200 amp panels and maybe 25 or 30 of our 5 RQs. They are just loaded for bear over there, and they have their own feeds coming from whatever their power company is in Nashville there. And I actually took pictures of it because I'd never seen anything like it. I mean, a recording facility with their own transformers, gotta love it.
There are actually about a dozen of those 200 amp wall panels.
Oh my goodness, there you
Yeah,
go. Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah, so that was a revelation, and and they're one of those studios that actually came online 25 years ago with Equitech as part of their infrastructure. John McBride was a big proponent of it, and he's just giddy when he talks about them. So as am I. I feel like an evangelist sometimes because being who I am and not being a creative, but being a technologist and having to feed you guys and make sure that everybody's happy is my lot. And to be able to come into a facility with the absolute certainty that what's coming through that wire is the power that you need. It's just it's stupid. We went to the NAM, and everybody else in that facility should have had an Equitech in their booth. I mean, that's kind of wishful thinking, but people were stopping by the booth that we had, which had KSD speakers, a Wolf audio console, and we were running everything off of a 2RQ, by the way.
Good.
And the people that were listening to it were there was like a crowd around the booth because everybody's saying this sounds unbelievable, and the manufacturer, the owner of the mic, the speaker company says this sounds unbelievable, and we're both looking at the Equitech, and it's like it's the ugliest thing in the whole place.
Especially at a convention center where God knows what's on the power lines there, and noise and stuff at the Anaheim Convention Center. Come on, Disneyland is next door.
So, Joe, I have a question for you. If you are just a home studio guy, can you do it with a Model 1R? If you get like the basic Model 1R, will you notice a difference in the sound when you're plugging all of your computer and your mic pre's and your compressors and everything into that? Is that going to be a noticeable difference?
Absolutely. It's not only like you got to sit there like some of these reviewers will take something back and they got to go and analyze it and check it out. All you've got to do is listen to this the first time, and I suggest, and we all know, the comparison is to listen to something first, and unfortunately we can't A/B it because it is a power device, and we have to shut down and reconnect and bring up the same files and listen, and immediately people start to hear different nuances that they didn't hear before, different spatialities that happen. It's an immediate reaction from the most, and basically for those people that are critical and that are the musician, producer, engineers that have been living and sleeping with these files, and the guy turns around and he goes, "What just happened? How did you do that?" And to that end, we've got people that will come and say, I'm really not sure that I can afford this. I said, well, you'll spend $2,000 on a microphone or $17,000 on a lunchbox, but you won't buy something that'll take care of the power. I mean, what are we doing?
So just to clarify, if that's your line of demarcation, you buy a 1R, and from that point forward, your recordings are going to be infinitely better, but that's your line of demarcation. It's not like you can retroactively go back and do anything for it. It's cleaning up everything you're recording from this point forward, correct?
Well, that's true. I mean, we have to look at it from the direction as a recording medium. Yes, it's going to hear, but in fact, it does make the actual files that were recorded through all of your gear. It's logged in like that. And, we can all listen to things that we have as our reference. For me, it's Ella Fitzgerald, Ella Swings Lightly. It's Steely Dan, of course. I mean, all these things that I've known and listened to, and every time I listen to it, I know that there's my system is sounding better with those files. Now, of course, those recordings were not done with the Equi Tech. So let's try to be aware of the fact, what does it do? It just makes the amplifiers that you're using sound better because they're not struggling to be able to pass to do their job in a way that they could never do before, because this having symmetrical power changes the way we listen to our audio gear.
Joe?
Yep.
I'd like to put in my recommendation for the Equi Tech stuff. We have a 10 kVA wall unit that I've been using for 22 years. Prior to that, for 6 years, I had a really sharp electrician who had a transformer, balanced power transformer, custom wound.
Yep.
Yeah, we've been using the wall panel for the Equi Tech wall panel for 22 years. It's powering everything in the studio. And actually, just 2 days ago, I added a battery backup just ahead of the wall panel with voltage regulation. So it's I wouldn't run a studio without that.
It's great.
So David, I have a picture of that from Facebook. Can I share that to everyone?
Sure. Let's see.
Your setup.
Yeah, I apologize for the sloppy
don't worry
wiring. That's we're still in progress there.
That's all good. Let's see it.
Should have it now, right?
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. There you go.
So at the bottom is the UPS.
Yep.
Yep.
And then that's feeding your Equi Tech panel above it. The stuff on the right is IC stuff, routers, modem, and all that stuff.
Yep.
Yeah. Yep.
So
It's pretty
the
clean.
entire Equi Tech is UPS'd?
Yes.
Yes.
That's a
You're
big
not
UPS you have there.
Yeah, David. Which
That's-
UPS?
It's a Liebert, and it's 250 pounds, and getting that into the studio was a bear.
They're
It's
bad.
a brick. Well, David, you mentioned that your electrician was sharp enough to have a transformer custom wound. I was at an audio show in Germany 2 years ago, and this little Italian guy comes over to me and says to me, he says, "I'm making my own balanced power transformer." And I says, "You did what?" He says, "Yeah." He says, "I made them many years ago. Sounded very good." I says, "Oh yeah?" I says, "Can you heat your house with it?" He says, "Yeah, it gets a little warm. I have a fan over there." Because that's the problem. Balanced power is an easy thing to be. It's not difficult to understand, but to have it in a package like this that is so perfectly wound, it doesn't get warm. I did an installation for a company called Plug Studios in the Bronx about 4 years ago, and they put a 10WQ in there. They put it in the middle, in the airlock in between two hip hop rooms, with a David from PAD, Malikpour, with one of his Ausberger systems and his amplifiers pushing 5,000 watts a room of audio power. They had both rooms cranking. The rooms are isolated to death. Let's be clear. And I said, damn, I'm going to go out in the hallway and I'm going to put my hands on the panel and see if it's actually chugging along. It was stone cold. With 2 rooms running with hip hop, with 10,000 watts of audio power happening, and the Equi Tech is sitting there saying, "What's the matter? That's all you got?" And that's the thing. You see, when you build something like this and it's this reliable, I can speak unequivocally that there's nothing in our business that is important as this panel, because or rack unit, because everything is based upon it. You can't hurt it. You can't you can't live without it, like you're saying, David. That's wonderful to say, and I can't thank you enough for that, because I go to sleep every night and I think about a lot of things, and it's people like you that make me believe that I'm not. It's wonderful, because so many people, when you hear it, and like Philip Petty, the first time I let him listen to it, I brought it up to his place in Connecticut, and he's a curmudgeon and he's got great ears and everything. We all know and love him. And so I plugged it in. We were listening to some files, and he hits the space bar. He turns around, he looks at me. He says, "So how much does this thing cost?" I said, $6,800. He said, "Fuck, I didn't want to spend the money." I says, "Frank, go in the garage, get an M49, sell it, and buy 2. What do you want me to tell you?" I mean, and he was my boss, so I felt comfortable to tell him that. I've known him for 20 years, but that's the truth. Even he said, "What the heck?" So it's like that. When people that really can hear and turn around and say that on the first listen, that's all it takes. It really does. And Barry, like you said, the Equi Tech operating in the NAMM show, and to have it sound in full blown free air there, and people were sitting down listening to the speakers near field and saying, "My God," people like saw the guy like rubbing his arm, he was getting chills. So yeah, me too. Me too. It's that good. And the Equi Tech is it should be everywhere. And we try to do that. And it's moments like this where we get to talk to, true professionals like you, that we want your music and your products to sound as good as possible. And for us, that's not a problem.
Here's the thing, though. All this stuff is hidden. The clients never see
I know
this. So you justify it by saying, well, it makes my work better. It makes me more secure in what I'm doing. So even if the clients don't have a clue, it's still worth it.
True. I mean, it's like anything. It's I think one time I said it's like having no salt and being able to being a chef. It's part of what you do. And I that one studio I mentioned in the Bronx, that I put the thing in the airlock so everybody saw Equi Tech. So most people, probably most of them, just walk right by it. But if anybody wanted to know, it's, oh, by the way, it's run by Equi Tech. And I think that people, if you have one, you should put it on your line card or and say powered by Equi Tech, because people will say, "What's that?" Well, it's like, remember, what was it? Bruce Swedien used to have this thing he wrote on the Michael Jackson albums. It was called recorded in infrasonic or something like that.
Accusonic, I think.
Accusonic. There you go. And what did that mean? Do we know what it means? He did everything. He had so many microphones. He did everything in stereo, because he had 96 channels of dash machines to be able to deal with, and he's just recording everything in stereo because he could. But I believe that when we really push comes to shove, I think that having the 1R on the product line now allows us to be able to reach even the most the youngest guys and girls that want to be able to record and have someplace to be able to turn to.
So Joe, any plans for a integrated UPS along with the balanced power. In other words, all one unit kind of thing.
I don't think so, Barry, because that takes a lot of engineering. And I mean, I'm sure that anything's possible. The sky's the limit for a company of this size. It's a closely held company, and Jan is obviously here to tell us that. But I think that those kind of things should be left to those people that actually manufacture. Obviously, Michael has done the right thing, and you know, by others, I think it would be.
So
Now,
I have a firm in UPS, and I would drive the Equitech with that UPS.
Sure. Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. And by the way, you know, the other thing about the Equi Tech is that not only does it work in the audio continuum, but because it would also be an incredible fit for the biomedical professions, for
Yeah.
MRIs, for CAT scans, for we have it in a number of institutions of higher learning that are using it for electron microscopes. The Jet Propulsion Laboratory uses it in their pump down chambers. I mean, they understand the fact these are rocket scientists who rely on the Equi Tech paradigm because of what it does to DC for the DC devices. So you know, it goes a long way. It was designed for audio because Martin was trying to solve a problem, but the fact is that it goes beyond that. It goes beyond our frequency range.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So just for my edification here, get the 1R, pop it in, plug it into the wall. All my stuff goes into there. Bob's your uncle.
That's
I
yes.
don't think a 1R is big enough. You need a 2 for all your
Yeah,
stuff.
I mean, yeah, for you, I don't know what you've got, Tony. I mean, that's for 1,000 watts. Okay, let's just talk about it in watts. So if you take your gear and actually we've been doing it with artificial intelligence. I pump in all the names of the pieces of your equipment, say what's the current capacity on these devices, and it will give it to you. So literally you can, it's basic mathematics. It's just adding them up and figuring out how many watts your system has. So 1 watt is part of a kVA. So if we have 1,000 watts, it's a 1,200, or it could be 825 depending on the drawer. But that's kind of how you go. I usually recommend the 1R for people that are just starting out, that this is their first rig. They've got a pair of speakers, a Pro Tools, a Mac Mini, you know, a tube amplifier, a tube microphone rather, and maybe a guitar amp. And you know, of course, guitar amps, tube microphones, they got to be included in the equation. You can't let them out. They deserve the power too. So, but that's how you can that unit is under $2,000. Now the 2RQ is a little bit more pricey because of what it does and what is the difference? Okay, the difference is the size of the transformer, the way that the transformer is isolated from the with the Faraday shield around the perimeter. The actual circuit breakers that are in it are a higher grade. So it's just like trying to be not too a la carte, but that's the differences. If you're asking why is one 2,000 and the other is 6,000, well, those are the reasons. There are very, very expensive components in it that change the value of it. But does it matter sonically? No. It does make a difference power-wise, because you've got to basically monitor how much power you're using versus the amount of juice that your equipment needs. Yeah.
So Joe, so a 1.5 RQ,
Yep.
that would give you a little more space if you want to add more gear or more mics or whatever you want to add. You got a little more.
Cush. Yep. Absolutely.
Okay, so is there it's just basically doing math. You're sitting down and you're going, I have X number of watts and I've got to go up to this. And then that's how you do the math to figure out exactly which box you
Pretty
need.
much.
Pretty much.
Yep, that's about it. And you know, we have this conversation with the vendors because we've got to educate guys that treat this like a unicorn. You know, I mean, everybody's used the compressor. Everybody knows what a Bricasti is. Everybody knows, you know, how to set up a pair of 5.1 speakers, but nobody understands the fact that the power coming into it. Oh, I'm not an electrical engineer, dude. You can count, and that's what we try to start to do with people. Now we're trying to make them understand that to get from point A to point B to put your credit card down, you just got to do some numbers. And and I have to also say, I've never seen a 2RQ drop the ball. I've never seen it shut down, but because of it was being overdriven. And that's saying a lot, but I can say that with some resolve because I've been the maintenance engineer and I've known that the ones that I've put in, and we have a propensity to not leaving anybody hanging. A guy asked us a couple of months ago, so what's your return policy? And I says, we don't really have one. He says, why? He said, well, nobody ever returns them. He says, come on, that's like a sales pitch, right? I said, no. I'm the tech. And I'm telling you, the people don't say, nah, I don't get this thing. Take it back. Everybody that has it keeps it and takes it with them or takes their wall unit out of their rental place and moves it to the next studio. Really?
Not included in the purchase price.
So I'm guessing on the website, there's no kind of like, you type in what gear you have and it spits out like you're running an average of watts of number blah blah blah. So you need a 1R or this or 1.5. There's no kind of conversion.
We're actually, can I butt in here for a second?
Please do.
We are actually putting together the form with that kind of information right now, or where people can give us a list of their gear and what its draw is, and we can make a recommendation based on that.
Yeah. And you're right, because that is something that people ask. But to tell you the truth, I can almost like just look at a list and know. I mean, a pair of Genelec 1031s or 8010s, they run probably about 3/4 of an amp a piece sitting there. So there's already,
What about when they're playing loud music?
okay, well, there are different. There's at maximum power. There's at idle, and there's a quiescent level, right? So yes, it does go up, but this artificial intelligent thing that we've been using will give you a list of what equipment does what. Whether it's an SSL duality, how many inputs. I mean, it does it. There are ways to be able to do it, but when people are this serious about this and it makes that much of a difference, I would talk to them.
Wouldn't it be a good idea just to take the fuse value on the unit, say it has a 1 amp fuse or a 2 amp fuse, and just multiply that by 120 and you'd get basically the number.
That's correct. I mean, that's kind of right. Any kind of a ramp like that would work. But remember that fuse is a max fuse,
right?
And most of the time it's way over. It's probably 5 or 10 times more.
Right, but if if the line voltage increases or you have that unit on, running hard,
yep,
especially like a guitar amp or something like that, it's going to pull more.
Absolutely.
Don't misunderstand me, but Joe and Barry, you guys are way smarter than I will ever be. So I just make shit sound good.
Damn.
So that's why I'm saying, you know what I mean, Michael? It's like people pay me to make shit sound good. I can't, the amount of brain work it would take for me to go, well, this is only so many amperes. Like I plug stuff in, I turn a knob until it sounds good. And I've done that for 40 years, rather successfully. I'm not happy about it, but I need if you had a box saying this 1R will take this many things. And you said, okay, I have this and I have this and I have this and I have this. All these things are going in a rack. And like, Jan, if you guys had that thing where it says, what we recommend is a 1.5 because it will handle everything you've got and give you a little bit more just in case. That would be really helpful.
So can I agree with you 1,000,000%. And Will, can I ask you to jump in on that a little bit? Will is actually our sales rep, and we're working on that right now. And Will can probably tell you where we're at and what we plan on doing.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been running these AI models on people's gear, and I'm asking it questions. So we're starting. I think what we're going to need to do is start a database of gear and that we can verify that the draw is correct. AI is getting really good. We found that it was over recommending about 54% of my gear once I got some verified results from manufacturers and I saw kind of it was kind of over predicting what I would need. Anyhow, so we're working with AI modeling, trying to figure out the right prompts, and also want to get verified numbers from manufacturers. So it's a big project. That's kind of where we're at with it. But that's what we do. People give us a list of their gear. Joe and I will look at it, and ultimately, I'm okay with AI calculating stuff as long as I have Joe to say, "Does this look right to you?" You know, here's all this presentation, so he can kind of take a look and then give some real world expertise.
Yeah. I
Um,
mean, it would be great if you just had on the website and you say, rack one, I have this.
Boom.
Rack two, I have this. And the whole time it's adding it up. And it's like, okay, what you need is a 2RQ.
Yeah.
Right. And
We're
like I
doing that
said,
right now for everyone in the
like
booth.
like I said a half an hour ago, a 2RQ does most rooms, unless you've got some really. It's obvious when you walk into a room and you see, you know, 5 bays worth of outboard gear. And by the way, you're not using it all at the same time, so a lot of it is just sitting there idling. So it is at that quiescent level. So yeah, it's less than you think. Let's put it that way. A room draws less than you think under load. But the Equi Tech really is, oh, that's only a factor of the circuit breakers on the Equi Tech that says, you know what, the NEC code says I should blow out here, I got to go, and that's what it'll do. But for the most part, the Equi Tech will still be doing its job, and it'll still sound good until you reach that point, which, as I emphasize, happens very, very rarely. So a 2RQ at 2000 kVA handles most rooms. The next, and
Yeah.
by the way, Tony, just so you know,
Mhm.
these units plug directly, the 2R, the 1R, the 2RQ, they plug into a conventional 20 amp outlet. The 3RQ needs 220 volts. It needs,
Right.
so, and
I'm just
that,
trying to figure out, like, if you're a working guy, I mean, you're talking the difference between a $2,000 system and a $7,000 system.
clearly,
And so, you know, you have to figure out some way of saying, listen, I have this amount of gear and this will get me here. So I may have to run X number, like I'm going to run all my amps off of this, or I'm going to run all my compressors off of it. I'm going to run X number of things off of this box. And, you know, to justify jumping up to a 2RQ, it's just like, well, it's not just a mic. You know what I mean?
well,
It's
let's be
a
clear.
couple of
There is
mics.
the 2R is a little cheaper than the 2RQ because it doesn't have the same Faraday shield, so it is slightly less. I think it's probably a couple of $1,000 less. But these gradients are up to the salesperson, which in some cases could be Will. A lot with thank goodness for Sweetwater now and for Vintage King and Guitar Center. They are now representing us too. So we are making a fervent attempt at educating their sales associates to be able to have this data in their paint box. You know, if you don't know what color it is, you kind of punt. But we're trying to teach them how to be able to answer this one question, and that's the only question you have to ask. It doesn't have to be, oh, do I have to put a ground rod on my backyard, or do I have to worry about? No, you just have to make sure that a normal size rig will fit this particular gear. And like we said, the 1R is the cheapest. The 2R is next in line. The 2RQ, well, 1.5 is in there as well. So there's different price points for different individuals.
So I have
Michael,
a quick
got a
question. So for to Tony's point, say I have a rack for my speaker controller and all the Atmos stuff, and I have a rack that's for my recording rig. Uh, would there be any harm with me going, okay, I have a 1R on the recording rig and a 1R on the what is the speaker controller? Not that I don't typically run the amps anywhere after a UPS. Yeah, I've been advised not to do that because of the power draw. But anyway, so now here, can I take that approach to my life? If I have in my rig, and it's kind of different. If I didn't put it on the entire, you know, the two boxes, the 200 amp breaker boxes. If I was to put it on the amplifiers up at the front of the room for the mains, and then the speaker system and the record system, that would take care of me for the room. Is there any problem with me taking that approach? Right.
No,
No. So I can have three smaller systems. I still get the same benefits.
you do, but by that time you're up to $6,000 anyway. But yes, you can do. You can put that would be 3 kVA. You're right, and that's a good point. Good point. You could do 3 of them and have 3 kVA instead of having to have a 3RQ that had 220 volts. So yes, that is good logic, and that works.
Okay. Yeah, I know that in my room I did put a 30 amp system in just because of when I built it that we were still using Mitsubishis and Sonys and stuff. I needed a 30 amp. I've never had to use it, but that won't work for the 3RQ. It has to be 240.
No, it's okay. It's 208 to 220. What do you mean it has to be 240?
Well, okay. Well, so the 30 amp a 30 amp breaker on that one run, which was beefed up for the
for the Mitsubishis,
yeah, those guys, that is not sufficient for anything above a 2RQ.
Well, that's right, because those tape machines were 120 volts. They just said, but why would it be 30 amps? That's weird. I don't know. I think they might have given you a Hubble twist lock or something. I have to see the room.
Yeah, it's got the special connector on the wall plate.
Yeah. I'm not sure how that runs there, but I mean, a 2RQ is 120 volts out of the wall. And that's at 20 amps, a maximum of 20 amps.
So taking the approach for those of us who don't want to rewire.
Yes.
Right.
Individual units off of the feeds from the 200 amp panel would be the way to go.
Except if it's coming from the transformer and it gets to the main 600 amp split where it splits out 600 amps to the 200
sub panel.
Right. That is still 220 at that point? And it splits it into A and B legs to 120 each,
exactly.
Right?
And then you have 120 volts on either on L1 and L2.
So it's not like rewiring from that point. It's just I'm sorry, it's for rewiring from the main insert 600 amp to the 200 amp breakout boxes.
Right, but I think it already does that. I think what has to happen is after the 200 amp panel that's feeding the outlet in the studio, that has to be 220 volts for a 3RQ. So yes, it does require rewiring, but not disemboweling things. It's just a question of reversing some wires and configuring it in the panel with a two pole breaker to the 30 amp outlet. And now you have power going from one point to the other with the same wires in the wall, just configured for 200.
Really, it's the same wire. I don't have to, because I was thinking I have raceways, and I'm sure that most of us who have studios have raceways.
In there. Yeah, I mean, I can do a lot by telepathy here, but I get the electrician in and tell him what you want to do, and he'll tell you if it's doable. One of the things about that 30 amp wire, Michael, is that it's going to be 10 gauge wire as opposed to 12 gauge.
Right.
That's what makes it 30 amps, and that's why this is pretty much a slam dunk. But get the guy over there and let him qualify it, and then you can figure out how to go. But I mean, a 3RQ would be great for your room.
Hey, Jan and Will. Anything that you all can do to demystify it for the local, I want to get in and I definitely want a powerful sound. I definitely want a better sound for myself. Anything you can demystify that for the local guy, or the small guy, I should say, with the small system would help a lot.
Yep.
And what do you mean demystify?
Well, because Joe is really smart. Joe is like nuclear science smart. And not everybody has that kind of smart. And so I'm getting a lot of people who are texting me literally offline going like, okay, I just got a small system. How would I know if it's going to fit my system? Because they don't know everything Joe knows. Joe's like a walking dictionary of you could do this, you could do this, you could do this, and that's great. But
That is-
Joe Blow needs to know, it's like, dude, here's the gear I have. Will it work? Because I'm
Call Will.
Oh, it'll always
yeah.
be.
And a lot of people have questions. They're saying, you know, I'm sold on the concept, but how do I figure out like what's going to work best for me?
Okay,
Gotcha.
so email sales@equitech.com your gear list, and
We'll
we'll
hook
take
it up.
care of it. I'll work with Joe. We'll come up with, not only what we're calculating, Joe will take a whole look at it, and we'll qualify the system. And Joe's done this 300 times plus.
Yeah.
Yep.
So,
Joe's a brilliant
we have
man.
Joe. Definitely, we have Joe.
Massive kudos to Joe. But
Yes,
if
Joe.
you're
Much, man.
I'm literally fielding questions as we're talking, and people are like, he's really smart. But how do I just figure out for my room?
Yeah.
You know what I
Talk
mean?
to us.
If there's like a configurator, like you know how like everybody's got a configurator, it's like this is what I'm running and this is what I'm putting out. How do I know which one works? I know that my power is not good, and I know I didn't make it better, but how do I figure out which one to get? And like Michael was saying, it's like if you bought you didn't get a 1.5 RQ, but you just got a 1, and you're like, okay, you know what? At the end of this summer, I'm going to get another 1, and I'm going to have it run my, speakers. And then I'm going to get, I've run the maximum capacity for that, and I'm going to run something else. So it may be something, because a lot of the guys who are asking questions are like, I've got a small room, but I'd like to expand it someday. I don't have to buy a 2 RQ or 3 RQ or 5 RQ. I can just put another 1 in the system. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Sure.
It is an additive device. You can do that, and it has no bearing on the way. There's no phase compensation, nothing. It's just plug it in and add more gear. That's really all you got to do. And that is I say that without any questions. And we will, if you talk to us and send an email, we'll do the math and we get back to you right away. It's not like you got to wait until the end of the month.
Well, I believe you. I'm just trying to make it, because a lot of the questions are coming in just saying, how do you know which one to get?
All right.
It's like, I don't want to spend $7,000 right now. Can I do it with the $2,000 model? Well, I hear the difference on the 2,000 model on the gear that I've got. And so I'm just trying to be that bridge of gap of like, the gear is here and you want to get this to get going. And once you figure it out, you're like, dude, this is amazing. I need to get another one of these. You know what I mean?
That's the point. We actually took the 10 amp rack unit out of the product list a while ago, probably about 5 years ago. It was a bad recommendation by somebody who was working with us. And we realized recently, probably in the last 6 months, how valuable it is for somebody to have an entry level rack unit that will do what they need to have done, and they don't need that much power. So we brought the 1R back online for that exact reason.
Yeah, because I'm telling you, most of the guys who are asking questions are like, they have stuff in their home studios, and it's just like, if I could start somewhere and build out from there,
that's the way to go.
LA's losing studios left and right, and these guys are going home and working. Yep. So it's like, I'll just get the 1 and start there and build out from there. It's $2,000. It's like, I can do that.
Right.
5 RQ, I can't jump that high yet, but if I hear the difference on the 1, then I can know where I'm going.
Now, sales spiel. I did a survey for a kid out in Long Island. He bought his from Sweetwater. He bought a 2 RQ. Had a good job. He's a radiologist or something during the day. He said that Sweetwater let him do a payment schedule on it with 0% interest. They just want his business. And you can buy whatever you want from Sweetwater, and they work with musicians. They work with producers. They're not there to fleece people. They want to see you get what you want. I never knew that because I buy, I'm okay. I'm good. I buy what I got to do. But for those people that are starting out or have a budget, you can buy what you need, and Sweetwater is a very good spot. I only found this out because the guy told me. I wouldn't even know.
And absolutely, Joe, you can do that. I'm just trying to, they're just trying to figure out like what they need to buy. That's all.
Yeah, for sure.
And people are good with like, I can drop $2,000, but I need to hear, it's like, is that 1 going to buy me what I need to do? Am I going to be able to hear the difference with the 1 instead of jumping into a 1.5 RQ or a 2 RQ? It's like, where can I start and what will I find once I get there? And that's
really-
what the questions were really about.
Right.
It's
And the
a-
questions,
yeah.
the answer to the question is they all do the same thing, just with different power capabilities. That's the answer. You
Yeah.
will notice it. You will notice it right away. It's not like a smoke and mirrors. You will hear it. And the amount of energy that the device will handle is a numerical minor equation. Tell them to email us, and we'll get them right back to let them know exactly
Sure.
what it is.
Joseph, can I ask if this is a half-baked idea for me? There's a Reed Instruments power meter. I can plug my rack into the Reed power meter, and I can turn everything on, and I can see what it's drawing.
Mhm.
And then I'd be able to determine that way instead of going through the process. Yeah, Will's had a thumbs up on that. With that, I mean, it's not the cheapest Harbor Freight one, but it's a Reed Instruments, which I assume is the pretty good instrument. I'd be able to then see what that rack draws, and I'd go to the next rack and see what it draws, and then go to the amp in the front of the room and see what that draws, and then that would be it. Those are my
Yes.
3 power points.
Absolutely. That is, you are having the equation fast track for you. Absolutely.
We've
And
got
then-
another question. Go ahead and jump in.
I was just going to ask
Oh,
does
go
it
ahead.
have any effect on the video? If I have, because one of the biggest, at least HVAC sucks in my studio is that projector. So the projector, am I going to see an improvement in my video quality?
Absolutely.
Yep.
The video guys are telling us that in their facilities that the blacks are deeper, the colors are more vibrant, and the only difference is they plug the Equi Tech in. Yes. So and it's I'm looking at an a 75-inch flat screen in front of me that's dazzling, and it's a 7 or 8 year old flat screen, and yet it still looks great. The Equi Tech, it's plugged into the Equi Tech.
We've sold 100 amp wall panels to university research facilities. They use it for their electron microscopes, and the imaging is so improved. I've got to contact them and get them to give me a letter of endorsement, because that is, and for the medical industry too. I mean, it's a huge benefit for the medical industry for their imaging equipment. But I mean, that's another market, and it's a whole other world. So I mean, but yes, the answer is that it is absolutely improves imaging.
But it's the same thing that we use in the studio that you're selling to them.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes. Great.
Yep.
Thank you.
All the same.
Yeah, I have a question, please.
Yes.
For you, Joe. So I have studio like 24 by 26 feet. Now I'm putting there lots of stuff, and I'm thinking, because my electricity is 15 amperes, so I'm not planning to do new electricity. So, for example, I bought now Foreman. What's the main difference between, for example, between Foreman and this Plus DMC and your products?
Furman makes an incredible product for the nature of power distribution. Equi Tech is a balanced power solution that changes what that box plugs into. Equi Tech is unique in so much as that it distributes power in such a way that the equipment itself functions better. The Furman devices are for power distribution and for the flexibility and for monitoring. But other than that, they're two completely different animals.
Well, I'm so sorry, Joseph. They do have a symmetrically balanced power conditioner as well. And Znek, is that how?
Yeah, you can call me ZK. Good.
ZK. So ZK, that's what you're asking about, is to compare the Furman 200A Prestige balanced power to the Equi Tech.
Yeah. Because I want to do something with electricity. So my question is, I have a board. It's electricity, nothing fancy, works. So if I buy if I buy some of your product, do I need to do something with electricity? I mean, some big surgery, like or I just plug in like a Furman to my 15 amperes plugins, and I put my gears. Let's say if I buy 1 hour, how many amperes? Is it 15 amperes or 20?
It's 10 amps.
Oh, it's 10. So
Yes, it's 10.
because I need something for 15 because I want to put as much possible, you know, because I will have console and it takes 500 watts. I know.
Okay, so that's halfway. Yeah, that's already half of a 1R.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
it's 4.7 amperes, 4.7 amperes, so I'm still good because I have some interfaces, but people mention it might be good, some converter, but it's good is it good to contact you for some more deep question? Because I live in New York, in Yonkers. You live in New York, yeah?
you're in New York?
Yeah, I'm in the Yonkers, close to
Oh,
Bronx.
okay. I'm in Bayside, Queens.
Oh, Queens, I see. So I have studio now, man. I'm seriously putting together, you know, with will be lots
Yeah,
of stuff.
I'd love to
So
talk to you about it. Yeah,
I
we
want to
should-
protect it because if we put so much money to good gear, you never know just some parts broken. I don't know if it was electricity or if it was just parts. You know, you never figure out. But you want to anticipate problems. You know, so little by little, you wanna be sure that it's good. You know, because as you mentioned, people invest $100,000 and after electricity to destroy some parts and you waste another money for repairing. You know, so I want to do little by little good, you know. So for example, for a studio, I can give you details what I have. And also I know how to count it, but but my point is with what to start, for example, because you know this Furman what I bought is like $200. I got good deal. So I can use it. But if I want something more serious, maybe you can give me advice with what to start
absolutely.
regarding
Well,
of my electricity, you know, my
Can I jump in, Joe?
Sure.
If ZK's thing, if his studio is running off of one 15 amp circuit, he
right.
can plug in with just any of your first two boxes and his studio will still run off of it.
Absolutely. Yes, that's true. A 1.5R, 1.5R would be fine.
1.5R. It's called
Yeah.
1.5R.
Yes.
And how much cost? Anyway, I can figure out, but how much approximately? Like,
Where's
oh, is this one? Okay, yeah. One point R. I see.
one that it's you want 1.4 1.5R, this guy here.
Or 1R. I don't know if 1R will be enough.
Shoot, hold on a
Yeah, I
second.
have to send you gear, everybody. We have to count it.
Yeah, and not only that, ZK, you're close enough to me. I'd come over and have a look for you because it's that kind of service that we provide. I mean, it's not. I try to be able to be accessible to people like yourself. So maybe you should contact me directly, and I can come and have a look, and we'll see.
I'll be cool. Yeah, I'm guarantee you if you're coming. My wife is very good chief, and I'm doing extremely good coffee. I'm coffee maniac, so you will get that.
A 1.5 is like $3,000 according to Sweetwater.
That's
So
right.
you
Well,
could
thank
find
you.
out pricing there, but it's ballpark.
Yes, that's about yes.
I see. Wow.
Anybody else have any questions?
Hey Joe, I got a question.
Hi, Alex.
So let me see. I have a casita and I have a 15 amp circuit, and then I have a 20 amp circuit with clean ground that I had installed there. So on that 20 amp circuit, I'm running 20 amp Furman power conditioners. Up to this point, I was using passive speakers for my Atmos rig, but I'm converting that over to active. So my question is, I'm trying to figure that out. Like with active speakers and Atmos, would each speaker connect to each port on one of your units, or
Yes.
would that go to a power distributor and then that power distributor be
Yeah,
connected to one port?
Alex, that's one of the things about it. The Equi Tech is not extension cord phobic. However you want to distribute your power to get to it, that's all that it really cares. So if the Atmos speakers are obviously mounted on the ceiling, and now you're going to be going to powered speakers, you're going to have to provide power to them. So you will then collectively take the 6 wires from that and go to a power strip, and the power strip then plugs into the Equi Tech. Now, I don't know how do-it-yourself you are, but there is a type of wire that is available from Home Depot, and it's called SJ. It's a 14-pair, 3-conductor rubberized wire that people use on stages for venues. It's I think maybe like 45 cents a foot or something like. Well, no, it's even less than that. All I know is that this wire, you make your own extension cords, and then you create the network for for the active Atmos speakers. We've done this before, and that's my suggestion.
What's the gauge on that, Joe?
that is 16 gauge.
Would you state that again, what the wire, the model number is, please?
It's called SJ. It is a rubberized 3-conductor wire that we make all of our extension cords. We don't buy extension cords. We just buy the outlets, the connectors, and build them. It is a 3-conductor, white, black, and green in a encapsulated rubberized jacket, and it is 16 gauge wire. And that's basically what your normal IEC wire from your gear to your wall is, so it all conforms.
I'm going to put a link on the chat. Let me know if that's the correct one, because I am in the process of figuring all that out.
Yep.
Well, for what it's worth, Joseph, I had been, I don't know if you're familiar with Art Kelm and Ground One, who I believe was trying to make sure that I had an Equi Tech when I built this studio, and that was at the very end of my chain. So I didn't get there yet, but I'm about to get there. So he had he had specified not just even aluminum conduit. We had steel jacketed conduit in the whole thing. My noise floor is way down, but instead of running running just an open wire, I have my all twisted inside of steel jackets, and it wasn't a big expense to do that for what it's worth for anybody who's considering doing that. And I don't know if there are so many people that would talk to me about how I don't know anything about being a double E, and I don't. I'm with Tony. If it sounds better, I love it. That's it.
Yeah. Well,
That's it.
one of the things about that, and that's a very introspective comment, because a lot of the intricacies and the noise problems that we've had in studios for all this time, do you think about how some people will tell you don't even put an AC cord over a microphone line because you're going to be causing an inductive crossing when that happens?
I still put them at 90 degrees every time. Yeah.
That's what everybody told you. But the fact of the matter is in my tenure, I've never really had that be that big of a deal unless something was really screwed up. And then the problem was why it was causing that. But essentially, and I'm not trying to be overstating the fact, the Equi Tech solves so many of these inductive problems because of the way that once it gets to the audio gear, it circumvents all those anomalies. We've been trying to solve problems like this for years, and I really applaud people that choose to drive a copper ground wire out into the backyard and say a prayer to the moon gods and all that. And I like that. But the thing is that I'm too much of a realist to think that that's going to make a difference in the end result. If you put your ear to your speakers right now, do you hear anything? Do you hear, if you can be a meter away and you can pan back and forth, do you hear that tweeter? Move closer and tell me when you can hear any kind of as we used to call it at RCA, grotzel, like some sort of anything coming out of that tweeter. You should hear nothing. You should be able to put your ear on a self-powered speaker, whether it's a Focal, whether it's a Genelec, and you should hear nothing if it's right, if everything's right. But most of the times you do. You plug in the Equi Tech, it's like somebody pulled a power cord out.
So Joe, on that point, would it be, to save money, would it be prudent to run all your audio gear only on the Equi Tech and your computer, whatever, vacuum cleaner, whatever else you got? Could you run that just conventionally? So only the audio gear, sensitive microphones, preamps.
You have to. The Equi Tech does not want to see lights, coffee pots, vacuum cleaners, vibrators, or anything else. It just wants.
Okay. TMI there.
Well, I'm being funny. I mean, but the thing is that we try to delineate that the Equi Tech is exclusively for the audio chain.
Yeah, my studio is wired, so I have a separate AC power just for the computer and the Pro Tools interfaces and my monitors. Everything else is on a separate AC circuit so that and the UPS is on the computer circuit. So if I'm editing or whatever and I lose power, it's only going to power the stuff that's in front of me. I'm not going to be able to have all the tube gear on, which I don't do anyway unless I'm using
Yeah,
it.
exactly. You
So
only
you
you
can,
don't
I
have
could
it
use
on all the
probably
time.
get away. I have a Furman, what do you call it, surge suppressor with an LED, and you can read current. And I've read current on the whole studio with everything on. It's around 14 amps with everything. So
Okay.
that's 14 times 120. Who's got a calculator? That will tell you your watts.
Well,
Total.
yes, you're within the range. That's
Yeah.
so you basically could use a 2RQ because the 2RQ
There you go. So
is
if anyone
18
wants to
amps
know how
too.
much current they're using, if they have one of those Furmans that reads current,
Yep.
or you get an amp meter out and read it, but it's not a big deal really.
Yeah.
And Joe,
Yes.
just to clarify, if I want to put a 1R in my ISO in my recording space to put all of my microphones in, correct?
Yep.
And
Yes.
then run that into the control room. And so I could have various 1Rs, like, oh, this is just running the amps to the what you call them. This is running for my microphones, and just to make sure I'm going to clean up as I'm going along because
Absolutely.
it's different places. So
Yep. I just had this conversation with a client the other day that said that that's what he wants to do too. They want to put one in each one of the ISO booths for microphones and tube amplifiers. So yes, you can do that. I'm a little bit more of a guerrilla warfare kind of guy. I use the SJ wire to go between the rooms, and I just put a piece of wire. I put basically an extension cord from one booth to the other. And however you do that, drill a hole, caulk it up, put a quad box in, and now you have. Because remember, you don't need 1,000 watts in that booth, Tony. You don't. You need maybe
good point.
300. So I'm believe me, I'm probably costing a sale here, but I have to tell you because this is full disclosure. You can be creative with the way that you distribute the Equi Tech power.
So get the bigger unit,
right,
and then run the power through the wall. That's just for that.
Absolutely.
That's cleaned up power.
That's the way to go.
Totally makes sense. Okay. I'm just trying to put a face on it makes sense to do it that way, but it's just like, how do you do it? What do you do?
But in a matter of that, now you have to have a 2-rack space box that weighs 65 pounds sitting in the booth, standing on its end, and there's a drum kit, and how I don't know how big the booth is, but I'm just saying as a designer, that's a little clunky for me. It works in a temporary situation, but if you can distribute power for 2 booths with one and keep it, buried in a mic closet someplace, let's just be trying to be elegant. That's what I'm saying.
And that is an elegant solution. Absolutely.
Cool.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Anybody else got any questions? I don't want to run these guys. Poor Joe needs a break.
One thing real quickly, which was just my experience of first hearing this after having heard the pitches and going, okay, this is supposed to do all these things. I used to work for a company, Burl Audio, for about 12 years, and we did about 60 converter shootouts around the world. And so I got really good at trying to eliminate any of the variables, because people want to say, they want to challenge you. Go, well, okay, I hear that difference, but here's what's wrong with your test. So, after doing all this, I was down in south of LA doing a consulting gig, wiring up someone's API console to all their gear and to the patch bay. But I had this Equi Tech unit with me from Jan in my car, and I drove home. And what I did was got into my home studio and pulled up. I have an analog Yamaha M1516 console, and I've got an AKG BX20 and a bunch of Burl stuff. And I just put a mix on the board really quickly, just threw everything up, put my reverbs in, and printed. And then I shut it down, and I plugged the Equi Tech into the wall, and then I plugged everything into that. And I hit record. And it was so late at night, and I was so exhausted. And I thought, there's no way I can be hearing that. I must have put my fingers on the faders and moved them up without thinking about it. So I went to sleep, came back in the morning, and mixed for about 30 or 40 minutes now on the Equi Tech, and then turned it off, plugged it, and just hit the 3 button on Pro Tools from afar. Didn't even touch the console, didn't breathe on it. And the difference was so big compared to what I was thinking, when I was doing these converter shootouts. It was bigger than a lot of the converter shootouts we did. The difference of putting it in my room, and I would say the imaging just felt so much more solid and wide. I could hear front to back better, and the snare drum of my drums changed. It sounded different, and it sounded better and fuller. And that's just was my experience with it. And I called Jan and I said, "Thanks. Now I'm fucked." That's
Right,
it. So that's for
now
me.
you
That's
gotta-
just my experience.
Well, also, Will, you also went to Pixar and brought a 2RQ over to those guys, and tell them about that, because that to me is really the postscript on this entire conversation.
That's really true. Now, Joe had a contact from an old friend from many years who is running voiceover sessions at Pixar, and he brought me into their studio. This giant one Genelec that they do all their mono, monitoring off of. And he got his room. We did some tests. He really liked it. He thought, "Oh wow, this is really incredible." We went to his partner's room, which was identical on the other side of the building, and there was that one speaker. And we walked in, and they're like, "Here," and what they did was they just turned everything off, put the Equi Tech in, and turned it back on. And I sat there and I waited for the speaker to click on. I thought it was in standby, and I never heard anything. And all of a sudden, the Pixar guys go, "Oh my God, this is like night and day." And I'm thinking it's still going to come on. And I realize it's on, but I'd heard it before. So that was a real eye opener for me.
Moment.
Yeah.
It's it.
Awesome.
Wow.
Awesome stories, everyone.
Thank you all. Thank you, Joe. I'm sorry for wearing you out, man.
No, Tony, it's my pleasure. I'm so happy to be with you guys because I've been wanting to talk to you guys for a long time, and maybe I'll see you at the lunch bunch one of these days.
Absolutely. There's just it's so many. I apologize for stepping away. There literally there are guys who are asking about stuff and texting me. They don't want to put it on the chat, and they're asking me questions directly. I'm like, I don't know. Why don't you get on the chat and ask him? like, don't ask me. Ask the show. I can't answer that question. I'm like, just ask him. He's here to answer these questions.
That's why you get paid the big bucks.
Oh yeah, man. That's it. I can't really thank you enough because it's wonderful to be able to have that, that ability to have someone answer those questions. And, not everybody has those answers. So I do appreciate it a lot. And I don't know. Thanks for coming, y'all.
Thank you, Tony.
But,
Thank you.
I just want to add in that I really appreciate you guys inviting us, and this has been very informative for me too. And I'm really, really happy that Joe was able to clarify a lot of things and also found you as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Joe, it's been invaluable. I mean, Will, Joe, Jan, everyone, thank you for coming. But I don't feel like this is the end of the conversation. I feel like this is like a great beginning.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people are very much open to it. They just want to how do I get to where I got to get to from here? I'm sold on the concept. Now, what do I need to do? How do I step it up from here?
So
Gotcha.
we'd be really happy to host a Q&A with people who are interested. And I know that Joe would be just delighted to participate in that and answer any questions people have or any questions about their particular, situation in their studio. And so if you ever want to put something like that together, we'd be thrilled to participate.
Yeah. Let me ask you something,
absolutely.
Joe. Is there a way to, like Will was saying, is there a way to just we're going to plug stuff into here and then we're going to shut it off and hear an A/B difference between it? Is it that obvious?
Yes.
Then maybe we could do that.
If I can't hit A and B and listen to it instantaneously, your ears don't you think you're being fooled. No, it's that good. You unplug, you turn it off, you plug it back in, boot the computer back up, and you listen. And by the way, anything with a clock should go through an Equi Tech. Now that's tough because like Barry, he likes to keep his computer on the UPS, so he's not going to be able to do that. But
yeah, my clock is on it. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I understand that, but the Equi Tech, but if you have a
Two separate AC circuits.
Yes, keeping in mind that on the back of the Equi Tech, there are white outlets and gray outlets. The white outlets are the ones that are for audio gear and analog equipment. The gray outlets are for digital devices that are like a Bricasti would go into it, I guess. But it's just one
What's
of
the
those.
difference?
Yeah.
So-
No, what's the difference, Joe,
It
between
goes.
the two outlets?
I would
It
plug
goes.
everything into the best outlet. I don't care about it.
Well,
Anything
yeah,
you're
you
talking
say that.
about.
Well, I mean, empirically, there's a filter on the outlet, the gray outlets that get rid of all kinds of high frequency stuff that's out of the audio range. So that's supposed to make the clock sound better. Once again, I don't do very many quantitative analysis on this gear. I just know that whenever I use it, like you say, Barry, it just sounds great. But just for everybody's knowledge, that's one of the reasons why there are white and gray outlets on the back, supposed to be for the digital devices. So when I'm going to hook things up, I try to follow that rule. Sometimes you do, most of the times you do, sometimes you can't. But just no vacuum cleaners, please.
No, you brought up something, and I'm sorry to keep extending this, but
Right.
when in Barry's room, if he's got a UPS on his computer, he doesn't have to power down his computer and power it up. Could he not put the Equi Tech before the UPS?
No.
No.
No, because if you plug the UPS into the Equi Tech, it'll turn the breakers off. It thinks it's a dead short.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
it
what
doesn't.
happens.
Yeah,
Yeah.
battery backups don't work with Equi Techs.
Unless you put it in front of the Equi Tech.
There you go. Yep, you can put the Equi Tech. It's power out of the wall into the power into the UPS, out of the UPS into the Equi Tech.
Right.
No problem.
And
Yeah.
then to Jan, I don't mean to be offensive to anybody. I just know that in my dealing, B&H, Full Compass, and Audio Solutions Group, they
Yes.
will deal with the 5% post-production tax that we're all supposed to be paying instead of 10% here in California. And they
No.
There's
don't
no
play.
tax in Oregon.
I'm so sorry.
We have no sales tax in Oregon.
Oh, well, but still,
If he's going to do
if we look at it, I'm supposed to pay that then. I'm supposed to pay it to the state, and if they ever wanted to come back and pop me for it, then I'd have penalties and fees piled on top of it. So that's why instead of when you deal with Amazon and you say they'll give you they give you a tax exemption as opposed to a 5% tax, B&H, Full Compass, and ASG will actually pay the tax correctly or charge you tax correctly.
Wow, that's one I don't. That's out of my wheelhouse, but it's good to know.
Yeah, that's interesting. I've never nobody's ever brought that up to us before. So that's
How many times have I heard that in my life, Jan? Every freaking day, this is my life. Nobody's ever asked for that before, Michael.
Yeah, I know. Wow. Definitely something to consider and to look at. We actually, another thing that just happened to us yesterday is that I got my bill from our freight forwarder who shipped us our transformers, our balance power transformers. We have them made in India and China. Both of them are really efficacious, but the ones from China, we got our import duty.
Yeah.
And our import duty jumped up to 50%.
Oh my God.
50%. The transformers cost us, $5,200, the ones that we purchased. The import duty was almost $2,600.
Oh my God.
And was it half of that before, or was it non-existent?
It was like 20%.
So it's jumped up 30%.
So it jumped up to 50% from 20%.
And is it something that could be manufactured here?
No.
No, it can't be manufactured here because of the unique way that the transformers are wound and the materials that they use and the low-no technology that we put into those transformers. It's like a patented process. And we have an agreement with Eagle Rise and Noratel that they aren't selling that technology to anyone else, because it's Martin's design, that they worked on with him, both Eagle Rise and Noratel. So it could be manufactured in the States, but it would not have the same qualities as our as our transformers, our toroidal transformers. But also, it would be probably about, it would add another couple of $1,000 in terms of labor and materials to, the cost of the transformer. We do have our chassis manufactured in the United States, and they're assembled in the United States. So they are definitely built in the United States. It's our transformers that we import, but they are not. You can't duplicate them. So we're sort of happily stuck with what we have. Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
That's pretty depressing.
Hey,
Depressing and amazing at the same time.
Buy it now.
Joe,
Yes,
quick question. Do you have your contact information you could share?
sure. It's Salvatto.
Put it in the chat, Joe.
Put it in the chat if you don't mind.
Mhm.
Thank you.
It's easier. That way everybody can get it.
Yep.
Yeah. Thanks.
No worries.
Anybody have any more questions? This was really informative for me. I love it.
That's great,
really-
man. Awesome.
Seriously. I mean, it's and based around the questions people are asking, people love the concept of it, but they just don't know how to get to where they're going to get to. Like, I know it'll make a difference, but how do I get to that difference? That's the biggest question of how people were asking, at least asking me. I don't know. But that's something that's just helpful. It's like, I'm sold on it. Yeah, I know this is really bad, but how do I make it better? And what are the steps I need to take to make it better? So, yeah, thank you.
We were trying very hard to make it affordable, that entry level rack. We really, really wanted to make it affordable for people so that they could have that experience right out the gate.
Yeah. Well, $2,000 is affordable.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
$2,000 is affordable, and that's what I'm saying. They don't. They're just trying to figure out, like, how much of my system can I run on that $2,000?
Yep.
Am I just running the monitors? Am I just running the computer? I realize it's going to make everything sound better, but what am I just running this on? So.
Well, if it's a season to taste scenario, I'll be glad to talk to anybody that wants to find out about that to make sure that they get what they need.
Mhm.
Hey, thanks so much, Joe and Jan, for doing
All right.
this.
Thank you all, and Will as well. Thank you.
Yes.
And Will, of course.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
guys.
And Tony and Barry, thank you.
Oh,
Yeah,
Thank you,
Very
guys.
Yeah,
informative
guys,
morning,
it's been a
as
really
always.
always.
So,
And we're going to cut this up and put this on the online, so everybody can be able to
just,
know what's
I
going
don't know,
on.
is it, Michael's here? And what about next tech breakfast? Are we planning on having, can we nail that down yet, or the
Let's see. Well, I'm doing this
sync
thing
DNA?
I'm doing this thing for Altadena now, where we're for the fire people.
Okay.
And,
All right. Well, we'll figure it out
Hold on.
later.
Let me look at my calendar here. If we go to
And
the
Michael,
third
on that
one.
last note, anybody that lost their Equitech in the fires of California, Jan wants to give them people at a significantly deep discounted price to be able to
Oh.
get them back online.
Yeah.
Good to know.
Yeah.
Yes,
That's
we've
really
already
good
done it with
information to
we
know,
have
guys.
one guy that his melted, unfortunately, and we're hooking them up. So we will help anybody that is in that situation. It's our contribution.